Hey, what's going on, folks? Thanks for tuning into this video. It's just not a good day for me unless I can expose what Freemasonry is really all about. So, in this video, I want to kind of tie together how Freemasonry and the Ku Klux Klan are linked and how this is really one of the most racist organizations in history. I know a lot of people who have tried to convince me that Freemasonry is nothing but a charitable, benevolent brotherhood. It's all about fraternity and guys just trying to go to the lodge and get away from their wives. But no, there's a lot more really going on behind the scenes, and we're going to expose that today. So, the first thing we're going to focus on is Albert Pike. Albert Pike is one of the most prominent Freemasons in all of history. He was a 33rd degree. He was a member of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. He wrote some very popular books. Among them is one called Morals and Dogma, which used to be required reading for some of the higher levels of Freemasonry. You can see this is what Pike said about Aryans that lived 10,000 years ago. He said, quote, "They were white men, the superior race in intellect, in manliness, the governing race of the world, the conquering race of all nations." Pike was also a Confederate commander during the Civil War and led a regiment of Native American troops, which he commanded to commit atrocities against their enemies. He allowed them to scalp people, and Pike is arguably just not a good person all around. You look at a lot of people in the past, and we can see that many of them were just victims of how people saw race at that time. But I genuinely believe that Pike was just all around evil. Okay. One of the actual founders of the Klan was a man named John C. Lester. He wrote a book in 1884 about the Klan, and this book was republished in 1905 by a man named Walter Fleming, and it included a picture of Pike and stated that he was the chief judicial officer. Okay. And again, this is important because a lot of Freemasons out there today try to deny that Pike was in the Klan because his writings are so important to Freemasonry and to their belief system. Okay. And again, further debunking these Masons that try to say Pike was a good guy or that he wasn't a member of the Klan. The Washington Post, which is still a pretty reliable publication even this day, they listed him as the chief judicial officer again in 1905. The KKK themselves listed Pike as the chief judicial officer in their own documents. This was a promotional pamphlet called Knights and Women of the Ku Klux Klan from 1925. It features him pictured next to Nathan Bedford Forrest. And if you don't know, Nathan Bedford Forrest was a prominent Confederate general who was probably, I believe, the only man in the war to go from private to general. And he is rumored to be the founder of the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, so if Pike was pictured next to him in the Klan's own promotional literature, that should tell you that this organization saw him as an instrumental founder of the group. You also have an interesting book called An Authentic History of the Ku Klux Klan by Susan Lawrence Davis. This is from 1924, and it also mentions that Pike was the Chief Justice of the Invisible Empire. And we go actually into this book, and you can see that it does have a portrait that it does say was donated by his son. So again, fast forward to 2022. I talk to Freemasons all the time. I look at their publications, I look at their forums online. People honor this man. They think he was really brilliant. They try to say he wasn't in the Klan. When if you go and look at the Klan's own literature, you will see that he was a member. What are they trying to hide? Why don't they want you to know who this man really was? You should be asking a lot of questions. Okay. Now, on to a more recent prominent Mason. This is Grand Commander John Cowles. You can see again, 33rd degree. Grand Commander means he was a leader within Freemasonry, okay, within the whole organization. And what he said about Prince Hall Masons, again, this is the organization for black Freemasons. He said, quote, "All regular Grand Lodges in the United States do not recognize any colored or black masonry." In 1947, Cowell stated that blacks are not allowed into lodges because, quote, "the general characteristics of the race as it exists in this country and the apparent incompatible social reactions of the two races." So this is important, okay, because I've met many Masons myself who have tried to tell me that Prince Hall Masons are not real Masons. I've actually talked to people who were in Freemasonry and they were real conservative. And I was like, well, how do you feel about the fact that there are prominent Prince Hall Freemasons that are black who are very liberal and they work against, taking down monuments and a lot of social justice type stuff? And they will just shrug their shoulders and tell me that, nah, they're not real Masons. But I think at the highest levels, really, there's a little bit more to this story, and here's why. So if you look at Prince Hall, okay, it's had some very prominent members over time. Today, for example, you've got Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. These are both prominent politicians. They're both prominent within the Democrat Party. Jesse Jackson has run for president multiple times, I believe. Al Sharpton had his own talk show on MSNBC, okay? They both talk a lot of shit about Donald Trump, even though they were pretty close with him at one point, at least by all appearances. You've got Benjamin Crump. Now, this man's interesting because not only is he a Prince Hall Mason, but he happens to represent almost every single victim of police violence that is black that's been publicized by the mainstream media in recent history. So, for example, Trayvon Martin's family, Mike Brown's family, Breonna Taylor's family, George Floyd's family. Basically, anytime a white cop kills a black person and it becomes a major headline, this Freemason lawyer gets up here and he's the guy profiting from all this. Nothing unusual about that, I guess. I guess he's just the best lawyer out there, right? I mean, that could be the only reason, right? And again, this is something that I talked about in my video on George Floyd. If you haven't watched that one yet, please go check it out. Couple of my favorite figures in history, actually. If you read W.E.B. Du Bois, he wrote a really interesting history on Reconstruction. He wrote a really good book about the South called The Souls of Black Folk. Now, he was a communist, okay, but I think that's very interesting that he's also Prince Hall Mason, because him and these other three over here, they're basically very liberal, okay, very liberal. And it seems that a lot of the prominent Masons that get the most media attention are very liberal that come from Prince Hall. Basically, the only conservative out of this bunch, or what I would call mildly conservative, is Booker T. Washington. If you don't know, he founded the Tuskegee Institute. He tried to teach black people industrial education, agricultural education. He founded the Tuskegee Institute. He really tried to unite white and black people in the South after the Civil War. He wrote a book that's really good called Up from Slavery. You got a lot of other prominent Freemasons too that are black. You got Richard Pryor. He's a Prince Hall Mason. Scottie Pippen, who played on the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan, he's a Prince Hall Mason. Louis Armstrong, plenty more. So these people that are telling you they're not real Masons, I mean, something just isn't adding up here. Okay. There's too many Masons that have had prominent positions of power that are black for me to think that nobody out there considers them real Freemasons. But again, I do believe that the free and accepted Masons, the white lodges, I do believe there's a lot of racism within these groups. I mean, again, anytime I talk to a member from one of the blue lodges, I bring up Prince Hall Masonry and they'll just tell me, no, they're not real Masons. So something is suspicious about all this. Okay. And the thing is, folks, I mean, you can't hold every single Freemason accountable. They're not all up to some nefarious stuff. Basically, even up to the third level, the third degree, what they call the Master Mason, a lot of them still don't know anything about Freemasonry. I mean, I post Freemasons' own words online all the time, showing people how they're racist, how they're working for the New World Order. And people will come on these message boards and on these videos and say, hey, I'm a Master Mason and I don't know any of this. I've never seen this before. Blah, 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 blah. And the reason is, yeah, because you're only in the third degree. Master Mason ain't shit. Okay. You got to get to these higher degrees, 32nd, 33rd degree, before they really reveal any of these secrets to you. And then many people believe that there is a veil with even higher degrees beyond the 33rd after that. So that's getting into a whole other topic. Again, I just want to show you that this is a racist organization, but there are many black members that have been very prominent throughout history. So something isn't quite adding up here. I want to know what you guys think. I'd like you to drop a comment. Let me know what you think below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. Please give this video a like and share this information with your friends and family. Let's wake up as many people as we can. And if you're a high level Mason out there, I'm on to your ass. And I will keep making these videos. I will keep exposing the truth. If I'm wrong, prove it. Okay, I'll make another video and retract this information and make a correction. Whatever I got to do to satisfy you. All right. I'm out here trying to expose the real shit. So let me know what you guys think. I appreciate your time. God bless.